Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is your March 28th, last weekend in March, edition, and today our special guest is coming to us from New York. You are at home, right, Alonzo?
Yes, I am.
Okay, it's Alonzo Von Threet. He's somebody who is a very prolific member of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. He's involved in a bunch of projects, even one that I'm sharing with him. And he's a great talent, and he's got better pipes than me for radio. So, Alonzo, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, I'm just not a little bit sweating now. I'm totally sweating.
Oh, no. I mean, I can acknowledge the fact when somebody's got good pipes. I mean, it's you're just about in that James Earl Jones category.
Oh.
It's not bad.
Welcome
to the show. Yeah, welcome to the show.
I really appreciate it. Appreciate it.
And
quite an honor.
And how's your weather out there? Here it's kind of cold and rainy. What do you got up in New York?
We've got cold and rainy as well. It's a little bit warmer than it was the last couple of days, but it still gets cold at night, and it's been a bit dreary. But it's I'm in the house a lot, so I don't really mind too much. The weather doesn't hit me one way or another too much, unless I have to go out in it.
So let's start out with the preliminaries. Did you grow up in that area, or did you grow up someplace else?
Yes, I did grow up in Buffalo, New York, natively. I grew up and spent most of my life in Buffalo. And then when I was about 24 years old, I moved out of town in pursuit of art to the big city, and New York City, which is not very far from here, but it was like when I got there, I was like, oh, where did all this come from?
Was it like New York City, just like you pictured it, skyscrapers and everything?
No, because I never actually pictured it. I was just really clueless about the big city, and actually I lived in Kingston, New York first.
Okay.
I met a friend, and because of just Buffalo being very depressed economically after Bethel Steel, the auto industry, and all that stuff kind of outsourced or went overseas, the city itself was basically not the same. And so economically, it wasn't much opportunity here. So to get out, it was just like any wind that blew. But I met a friend, and she said, hey, why don't you come with me to New York? And I guarantee you within 2 weeks you'll get a job. Well, she didn't really live exactly in New York, but I did get a job. So I got my first full-time job at 24 years old. And that was like huge. I was just doing like bottles, packing plastic bottles. I forgot the name of the company. But I was always striving to do art. So even on the boxes, I would do creative signs for each one of the boxes that I was bottling up the bottle until the manager told me to stop. It was like any opportunity to do art. But I moved on. I moved on to graphics, and then eventually 2 years later, I moved down to the city, and I lived there for about out of town for about 15 years, 2 years in Kingston, and about 12 and a half years in New York. And so when I left as computer graphics specialist for Philip Morris on Park Avenue, and I came back to Buffalo to study 3D graphics and character animation.
So we just jumped into your 26th year, and I feel silly asking about, well, when you were growing up, when did you start discovering your bent toward artistry, or the creative side? I mean, when you talk about getting your first job right out of school that early, obviously you must have had early creative influences and probably some good creative endeavor. I mean, how old were you when you started seeing in yourself, the desire to create?
Well, actually, William, my first job in Kingston, New York, that was my first full-time job. I had part-time jobs here in Buffalo doing art, but that particular job in Kingston, my first full-time job was actually doing boxing bottles and plastic bottles. So it wasn't art. I was just sketching on the boxes. So, it wasn't really art. I didn't actually get an art job for quite some time. But as far as my propensity towards art, if you want to hear something really funny or it sounds kind of peculiar, I've always done art. I remember as far back as nursery school doing art. I don't know if that's something as part of being an artist, but I remember being in probably kindergarten and knowing that I wanted to do art. I remember doing a blue bunny rabbit in nursery school, and the nun, the teacher, would come up to me and post them. They would post all the photos or drawings on the chalkboard. And actually, I wouldn't stay in the lines. Mine weren't all that great, and she criticized me for not staying in the lines. But I was like, what are you talking about? Mine's good. What? I'm supposed to stay in the lines? Who says? I was like a revolutionary artist, in nursery school.
But at least that early, you had almost like self-identified that you had an interest in drawing, at least, and that's kind of how it all started with drawing.
Well, what's really funny, and I'm being honest, is probably the interest of it was probably that the girls liked it. In first grade, and we have Facebook now, and I have a friend named Russell that I knew from first grade, and all the people from first and third grade, and we used to compete for girls. If you did the best drawing, then she'll be your girlfriend, and so I just used to try to draw to have a nice girlfriend.
And how did that work out for you?
I won every time. I'm like, she's beautiful. I want her. Let me draw.
See, now that there's just something wrong about somebody who's 6, 7, 8 years old who's a Mac Daddy already.
Simple-sided tendencies, yes, with a pencil. That was me, very early. You can ask my friends, Wade, Russell, and all of those guys. Yeah, I remember the girls' name. But, those things, I also remember being that art was the only thing that I did well. Like, I read slow. I just wasn't really quick. I remember my mother coming to school in first grade, and the teacher saying, well, he's not really good at it. He's a daydreamer. He looks up in the air all the time. And I remember, I just would daydream, and they were like, oh, but he does draw well. And so what my mother did, she took me to the Albright Knox Art Gallery. They had these drawing and finger painting classes. And so this is a modern art museum. It's very prestigious. And at a very early age, my mother was the type to get us all. I have seven brothers and two sisters, and something like that. So there's 9 of us all together. So I'm one of the 7. And but my mother would always give us all instruments. My brother draws. Most people in my family draw. So my older brother, I had one older brother. probably the last time I ever really competed. It was probably in first grade, you know. So I'm not a very competitive artist. It's always, you know, because I enjoy it or just really love the experience of creating. It's just very magical to me and very exciting. So
now, how many siblings do you have? I mean, you sound like you come from a very creative family.
Yeah, well, I have besides myself, I have I actually never really counted them because they're really big, but I had seven boys or males at the time. You know, we're all grown now, but so it's seven of us. So I'm the second oldest. So above me would be my brother Mark, then me, and then Paul, Edward, Huey, Jason, and Corey. And I may have forgotten somebody. But then I have two sisters, which is my oldest. They're both younger than me, and they're Teresa and Selena. And so that's the Threet clan. And then I have two other siblings that are half brother and half sister, and one of them passed away, which is Junior. He was very musical, very musically inclined, and he also did. No, I can't say he drew, but he used to build bands and have like Boris Vallejo type of artwork, Frank Frazetta, you know, type of artwork on his vans, and he did also model cars. He would win these model cars where you build a small scale model cars. So he did a lot of that kind of stuff, and also he like recreated his house. Like he gutted a house and just like made like cathedral ceilings, sunroofs, you know, just really artistic looking stuff. So he was always very artistic like that, and so my older brother Mark, he and I used to compete a lot when we were young. Not really compete; we would just share a lot of cool things, music and art. And so I used to play trumpet. He used to play trombone, and he used to draw. And he was actually, you would have thought that he would have been the artist of the family. He was very good and very creative. And so I basically did everything my older brother did. But he had problems with his eyes, and so it started to become very difficult for him to draw. And so I started drawing more, and he started playing music more. And when I was younger, I used to play a lot of trumpet. I played first trumpet in high school, citywide band. So, you know, that whole habit of practice, you know, started in a very early age. And my mother, again, was one that fortified that in my family. Like, just, you know, all my sisters, both of my sisters played piano. We just did a lot of creative things like that. You know, the discipline of do something, work, and the more you work at it, the better you get at it, and the easier it gets. Is something that I learned very, very early. And so I don't have the greatest work ethic as far as time management all the time. So I spend a lot more time doing what I do than probably is necessary. But usually with a project, you usually have to rip it from my hands before I give it to the client. But but as far as just working, like I really enjoy the work that I do and the amount of time to perfect it, to get it to the standard that I expect for myself is what I generally do.
So you come from a fairly creative family in a lot of different ways, which is, you know, it usually does work out that way. You know, when you have that kind of familial environment, you know, the kids growing up have that kind of opportunity to kind of express themselves because it's encouraged.
Right.
You know, you talked about the fact that, well, you did draw a little bit and then you kind of pulled back from it. And, you know, then when you had your first job, you did a little ad hoc art, not necessarily, I mean, obviously it wasn't retained work or anything like that. But, I mean, given how much time and energy you spend on art now and that you make a living from it, when did you start kind of returning back to being that kind of creative, you know, doing more than just, you know, art on the shipping crate or well, as you said, you know, you're in your mid-20s. Where did you go from there?
Well, I was pretty much established as an artist here in Buffalo before I left. So
okay.
I did, you know, that was just an incidental kind of thing where, you know, I was just, you know, I left Buffalo to do art or to be an artist. But here in Buffalo, I was doing art. I was doing portraiture and painting and oil painting. And I actually, in high school, I had a job as an artist for a shop, a black-owned shop called Bora Sanaa by William Yancey Cooper, who was an educator in Buffalo public school system as well as an entrepreneur. And so he had an African art import store where he would actually go to Africa and bring back the different types of African sculptures and African artifacts from the markets in Africa. And so early on in high school, I had this very strong Afrocentric type of influence from Bill Cooper, again, as an educator, as a painter, and as a professional artist. And so he also endowed me with an entrepreneur spirit. So he taught me how to do portraiture. Like I had talent, as you say, a knack for it. But he honed that talent. He showed me how to stretch canvases. He showed me how to work in business, how to grow business, how to just start a business. I mean, and to have the entrepreneurial spirit to actually go after that, or let's say the chutzpah, the gumption, to actually to just go out there and go get them, you know. And so that independent type of self-sustaining income is what I've always geared myself towards from a very early age. So, and during high school, you know, it was an amazing experience working at Bora Sanaa because I had to do things like sand African sculptures, shellac them, and also stretch canvases, cahogo cloths, batiks. And so I became very educated in the Afrocentric part of my culture. But I never was the type to wear it outside. It was a very internal kind of awareness. So I wasn't one that would grow my hair long or wear all types of colorful Afro or prestigious looking outfits, which I think are beautiful. They help to fortify your dignity and to get you in touch with your background and your ethnicity. But to me, it was very internal kind of awareness and a very, he was being an educator. He was very intellectual. So we had many conversations and things like that. And I was very much his right-hand man. I mined the store and those kind of things. So I was really into how I take my relationship with Black science fiction fantasy so seriously, because I feel like it's an opportunity to give back to the community, or the Black intellectual community. So again, very much early on in my growing as an artist, I felt like that was like a journeymanship, or an apprentice journeyman type of experience or relationship that kind of set me on my way as far as being a professional artist.
Yeah, but when you turn that around, your half of the equation was pretty significant for you. But essentially, what you did was you lucked into having not only a well-traveled, well-rounded, intelligent mentor. You actually had a mentor who was interested in, I don't want to say giving back, but who was interested in spreading the cultural wealth, as it was, in bringing you under his wing. And so, I mean, so many people don't get that opportunity. I mean, out of all of the things that you said about your early creative career and the way you grew into where you are today, I find that to be the most significant, because what it did was it not only exposed you to things that you never would have been exposed to otherwise, but it was done in an environment that fostered not only your curiosity, but your own growth as a creative.
You're absolutely right, Well.
Not very many people get that opportunity to have that kind of creative person around them. And so, here you have an extraordinary experience, an experience that is, to my mind, worthy of recounting. One of the great things in I don't even want to say African culture, because it's not necessarily African, but one of the things in culture that we have, I think, lost sight of is how storytelling and relating experiences that promote the imagination and the growth of a growing and an inquisitive mind. There are far too many instances where that's available. And you've heard many people, psychologists, sociologists, educators talk about, people don't know their roots, or people don't know this, or people are floundering culturally because they don't know. But it's not necessarily just a cultural imperative about learning about your own culture, but exploring your own creativity and finding out what the hell it is that does interest you. People are not even afforded that opportunity. So, you, even though it was a while ago, it was still an extraordinary experience for you, and one that if you pass that story down, people who listen to this show, people who listen to this podcast, they're going to listen to that. They're going to see just how that kind of giving, that kind of mentorship, it made all this the difference that I can speculate on in your life. I mean, not that you were going to be some gun-toting thug, because thug is the new keyword for but the fact of the matter is, I think you had a very good experience, and I think you were very lucky to have had it.
Absolutely, William. Let me add to that.
Is this guy still around, or has he passed?
Oh, he's still around. He's writing books now, because he used to do signage, and one day he fell off the ladder and he hurt himself really bad, and so I think it like he let it go, and it progressively got worse. So he has other artists and other apprentices around him that that assist him with his work. So yeah, he showed. Last time I saw him was at Juneteenth, but his name is Bill Yancey Cooper, and he's very phenomenal gain my own sense of creativity. That time was probably the most prolific as far as doing so, because at that time there were other people who were affiliated with that group of folks that, they had a sense of self-awareness. They gathered at meetings to discuss political topics that influence our culture, our community of Black people, and as a whole, and in our area. So they had different types of meetings and meetings of the minds where they would discuss things that influenced them politically, socially, spiritually, internally, externally, what have you. But out of those people that would come or that would frequent his shop as a hub of Afrocentricity, a lot of them wanted paintings, and so they would commission me as a 16-year-old artist to do artwork of people that influenced them as musicians, artists, let's say Thelonious Monk, Charlie Bird. At 16 years old, I was doing paintings of Charlie Bird, interpretive Afrocentric paintings of Charlie Bird, and getting paid for it. Another painting I did was Marcus Garvey. And as a figure of Marcus Garvey, I had to study. It was almost like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing when they said, go ahead and do what you want to do, how you want to do it. So I had to research it. So I learned in servicing that artistic community, I learned about my own cultural heritage, and especially someone like Marcus Garvey. It was maybe they did it to me on purpose to educate me, or maybe that's just something that they wanted. But I grew from the experience, and being so young, you don't know all the rules of art. You don't have a set pattern. You haven't formed or solidified your approach to art. So it was just go off on the wild, and at times it got to be a little bit too wild, creatively, because it's like with ultimate creative power becomes responsibility. You have to learn how to wield the sword, kind of speak. Art can be a two-edged sword. So it was it cuts going out and coming back. So the brush, the pen is mightier. The pen is mightier than the sword.
But the other half of that is, remember, this is a time when there's no internet, where you just sit your fat ass down, get in front, and then you do a search, and then you think you know everything. The process of exploration back then, and we're only talking about pre-1992. Yeah. It hasn't been that long. Not quite a generation. Obviously, not a generation, but in terms of culture, it's been a generation. But when you learn things at that age, having to research old school, right, I think the lessons that are learned are far more, they're far further reaching, because the acquisition of the knowledge costs more. It costs more in time. It costs more in your focus. It wasn't just a matter of, let me look this up on my phone. Let me do a Google or a Surrey search.
Right.
And I'll tell you something that freaked out everybody. For some reason, I wanted to know about Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Now, I don't know what a Japanese Negro needed to know about Alexander Solzhenitsyn back in 1970 or whenever it was, but that was like, go to the library and look him up. There was no, and so because of that, I felt that what I learned, and then eventually I went and did a paper on him, which was great because my teacher didn't know a damn thing about him, so she couldn't grade me down. But the thing is that when you spend that much effort in acquisition of knowledge, it means more to you.
Absolutely. go to the library, get on a bus, go to the library, find the book, and then when you find the book, you have to check it out, and you only had 2 weeks to study it. You know,
Right.
it made it very valuable. You really ingested the information. And to that point, you know, at the time, when I think I was about 20 years old, I wanted to be, because I drew, and I see it all as art. So if you can draw, you can apply it to many different things. I wanted to do animation. So I would go and get the Disney books like The Illusion of Life. And so because I was a slow reader, and that was a big book, I look at big books and just start sweating. What I did was I took a tape recorder that my brother got from the who had bad eyes. He got these tape recorders for learning aids. So I would actually read into the tape recorder just so that I can, you know, have the information and not have to go back to the library so many times and check out the books because I was such a slow reader. But, you know, 20 years old, that's what I was doing as far as, you know, trying to become an animator. And so that was the thing that you had, you know, I mean, back then you had to sketch and read, and the information wasn't so readily available. You couldn't pick up a piece of software and say, oh, I'm an animator, because you had the software. You had to study. And so that is one thing I would have liked to impress on, is just the amount of study and the actual effort that you had to go to get information. Yeah.
So how old were you? You were what, about 20 years old when you started thinking in terms of animation?
Probably, but no. You know, I think that a lot of it is, you know, like you say, I was really fortunate to get into situations that kind of just grew. Like another thing, my parents and having so many siblings. One of the things I would do, I always, like, you know, our internet back then was the World Book. Like, my mom bought encyclopedias. I'm like, what is this box of things? And she, you know, the guy would come to your house and she'd sign for it. And then a week later, they come with the encyclopedias and she'd set them up in a bookcase. And she'd say, okay, now read this book. And, you know, I'd look at the pictures and stuff like that. But one of the things that I would do is every time I learned something or figure, I would share it. And so I would share it with the rest of my family. And I would get so excited. And so I would always be doing all these kind of tricks. Like, you know, they had, like, other members. I was actually surprised that, like, other members who have had interviews, like some of the things that we have that's some similarities. Like, I had electronic sets, I had chemistry sets, and stuff like that, and was just always messing with stuff. But one of the things that I did as a child that got me involved in animation was with this tape recorder that I had from my brother. I would actually record one show, one cartoon, like, let's say Aquaman and things like that, and then I would turn the channel and then play the tape recorder back with Aquaman's voice and turn it to like Mickey Mouse or another cartoon, and I would switch the voices up, and I was just fascinated that it looked like it was still, you know, the same Aquaman voice coming out of let's say, you know, Sherman and Peabody or something, or Bullwinkle, or, you know, the cartoons that we had back then. So that was something, and I would make my brothers and sisters suffer through that. You know, I would be like, turn back the channel. But, you know, those were the things that just, you know, I mean, you know, I was fortunate to be part of the generation that, you know, Miyazawa, I can't ever say his name. You're going to shoot me. It's a Japanese name I just slaughtered for the father of animation, Miyazaki, who did Astro Boy. So I love those cartoons, anime cartoons, you know, and then, you know, the father of anime, and those kind of things. And, you know, we had the Incredible Hulk, Marvel, Stan Lee, which, you know, I just feel very fortunate that, you know, nowadays those are, to be an artist and to do 3D graphics and to be able to do those type of characters, it's just, it's amazing how, you know, they're puppets, cartoons, and it's all kind of the same to me. So one thing I used to do when I was a little kid was I have my brothers and sisters, being older, I could kind of make them do my way a little bit, but I would have them take a bed mattress and turn it on the side, and then we take a shirt and cut holes at the elbow, and then take a piece of cloth. My mom used to have pattern cloth, and we cut a head and take some cardboard and glue that, and take a hot iron, take some Elmo glue, and heat it up, and then you can glue it and then stuff it with tissue in the head. And you can make a Muppet and put your hands through the elbows and actually make the hands move, and you can even make little gloves or use gloves and sit behind the mattress and have another brother or sister, another sibling, work the other arm and you work the hand. And so we did puppetry and put on puppet shows. I mean, this crazy stuff, we used to do, my brothers and sisters, I don't know how they survived.
Yeah, but a lot of creative families, I mean, that's what happened. You got, first of all, you get a bunch of synergy from your siblings, okay? Because, there's a certain amount of competitiveness, but then there's also a certain amount of cooperation because you want to do something really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else remembers this. Do you remember when Muppets were first on TV, how they came to TV?
I don't know how they came to TV, but I remember
it was a Cramel milk commercial.
Wow.
Craml or something, and it was obviously nobody had seen anything like that. It was just attractive for kids, and kids want to drink milk. But I mean, okay, so it sounds very, very much like a pretty creative, but not necessarily idyllic, but at least a very stimulating,
right,
family environment where you guys were actually trying things out. And that also gives you a certain, emotional safety net too, because you're surrounded by people who you don't have to necessarily fear of being judgmental when you act out and things like that, and probably gave you a certain amount of confidence that you may not have had otherwise. When you started, go ahead.
I was just, as far as confidence, I don't know about that. I don't really think about, like confidence in the sense of, oh yeah, I'm an artist. I never really thought about that. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, but it may be a problem for you, but I mean, here's the thing about creatives, okay? Creatives often have to work in a vacuum. Okay, for me, as a writer, I don't know if what I'm writing is any good until somebody else tells me it's good. You know what I mean? And when you have a creative environment with your siblings, and you guys pretty much are getting along, there's a certain, you get a certain amount of confidence just from the fact that you can go ahead and create. As we get older, and maybe I don't know what everybody's circumstance is, but I can only kind of go by me. I don't know if I've written anything good until I see reviews, and reviews from people I don't know. So, when you started doing kind of the creative things that you did, it sounds like your household was nuts, and not in a bad way, but in a good way, because you had a lot of creative juices flowing.
Right.
Did that kind of carry over and give you a boost, or do you think it helped sustain your individual endeavor because what you went through might have been a slight confidence booster?
Well, as I think about that more and think about confidence, I don't think that I ever really thought about it because it was just something I always did. It was always just a natural part of just who who I am. So if you ask me who I am, I would say I'm an artist. That's just it. It's not really something that I ever felt that I ever had to prove that, this is just what I do. It's always been, it's like, it's just very natural to what I do. And so I never really actually think about it. It's not only until I got older and got around other people that I could even comprehend what you're saying about it, because when you get out in the real world of art and business and the competitive nature of it, you have people who want to compete, and they want to, when you compete, I just, they want to just kind of knock at your confidence, or like some way that you have to prove it. And I never ever really feel like that. And only through, like how you say, other people is, I don't know how to explain that, William. It's just, I just never really think about it. I've always
Nobody really thinks about it. Nobody thinks about, well, what the hell is going to be a confidence booster for me?
Right.
Because
I know
you're
people
thinking
about it all the time.
No. I know what you mean. Believe me, I'm not running the lack down. What I'm saying is, you said quite naturally. Well, you don't think about it, and who thinks about, well, gee, I'm going to do the things today that are going to validate my worth as a human being.
Exactly.
If somebody gets up and says that in the morning, they're usually saying that while they're waiting for the cart to come down the hall to bring their meds to them. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So no, I wasn't saying that you in any way, there was any conscious awareness of that. But I think that, I almost said a bad word. I didn't start. Here I was, in my 40s, and I thought, oh, gee, maybe I'll just write a book. You know what I mean? But yet, during the whole process, I was paranoid the whole way, because even as I'm writing it, I don't know if people are going to like it, and then, I talk to other writers. Oh, my stuff is so good, I'm going to get Oprah to do it. And, you've got all of these things going on, but at no time are you sitting there going, I am creating for self-validation, You know what I mean?
Yeah. To that point, like on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. I turned into a Facebook addict as soon as I get. And I see a lot of artists like, oh, I'm creative. I'm this. I'm on the grind. I'm making my moves. I'm like, that's your due. That's your due justice. That's your reasonable service. You're supposed to do that. It's like bragging about breathing. I'm breathing today. It's like, with it. It's like, you have to do that. It's on that level. But at a certain degree, I understand the competitive nature of business and publicity and getting other people to buy into your product. And that way I understand it. Like, you have to promo, and I understand how other people can affect. Like, I do have awards. I have a J.D. Power Associates Award that I won 3 years for one of my clients, BMW. And every time I say the name BMW, everybody says, wow, But that's, to me, it's a part of business. It's a part of I understand the publicity, and that's necessary. It validates you as far as when a company needs to find somebody who has the type of business acumen or background or prestige that they can better enhance the image of their product. That I understand. I have a business. I have a Business Week how much you talk about it, brag about it, the proof is in the pudding. You take a taste. If it tastes good, then you like it. It's a win. You want more, you know. So I actually, you know, my antennae go up whenever I hear somebody bragging. It's like art is the one thing, you know, that you don't have to talk about. You don't have to brag about. You know, your greatest competition, your greatest critic should be yourself. Like, I'm so hard on my own work. Like, I never, like, really criticize anybody else's work. I never, you know, and I can understand somebody competitively beating down somebody else's work in order to enhance their work. So, as an artist who strives for excellence within themselves, I do get people trying to beat me up or beat up my art or knock down my art or to beat a man to beat, you know, that way, you know, if that's a pat on myself. Excuse me if I'm bragging or sound a little arrogant when I say that. But, yes, I do try to beat a man to beat. I want to beat a man to beat. But it's not like, you know, I do that with a sense of integrity and trying to uplift my own work and my own value system that makes me feel a sense of integrity and feel proud about my own experience. Like with art, you know, and I used to paint. The experience is sitting in the sun, splashing colors together, and those colors create an emotional response within yourself. That's not something that anybody can take from me, add to, or change. So it's very personal. So I don't ever feel the need to beat down anybody else when it comes to work. I have a small Facebook group that I greatly encourage other people, no matter what skill level they are. And I've been in groups that, you know, and I don't blame them, I don't knock them, but most of the guys are my friends. But, you know, if you're competing for work, you want to look good. You know, you want to make, you know, you want to, when a client comes around, you want to say, hey, take me. You know, you don't want to be the last one waiting to be picked, you know. You need to eat and stuff like that. And you do what you have to do, you know. But, you know, to me, the best way, the best competition is you alone with yourself, you know, competing with yourself. And I think that in the end wins out, you know. That's just my take.
Well, that gets around to one of my pet peeves, and it is that all too often we as Black creatives treat artistic endeavor and also the commercial aspect of making money, of doing business, as a zero-sum game, which tends to explain a whole bunch of people out there who treat life and even treat creativity as though for every dollar Alonzo gets, he's picking my pocket.
Right.
Okay? And so when people have that mentality, and far too many of them do, first of all, your mentoring experience never could have happened under those auspices. Okay? You never would have had a mentor if that creativity in that man was so selfish that he said, well, I certainly can't share anything with anybody else because then I don't get my due.
Right.
Okay.
Snapping my fingers. Right. And at some point, I'm glad you're talking about that, William, because if I can interject,
sure.
When I went to New York, one of the most fascinating things about being in New York is that you would have districts of occupations, districts of flower potters, and districts of board, districts of photographers, districts of printout places, districts of artists, districts of fashion industry, the fashion district. There's just the name of it. And I couldn't understand it when I first got there myself. I'm like, why are so many that you would think businesses nobody could use that one, but I would count it off. I think it was because of my schooling with the music and timing and stuff. I could just time it out. And one day there was a bunch of guys in there, and they said, we can't get this darn thing to work. Get the to do it. He can do it. And I was standing there with my brother outside the door, and my brother just looked at me, and it was just, horrible. They just called me the N-word, and I was just outside of the door, and it was just like, But what I found, so I hated the school, and I would fight. I would blow firecrackers off in the hall, the forum. I wouldn't go to classes, and I eventually wound up getting kicked out of the school. But by that time, I started liking the school because they had all these extracurricular activities. I wouldn't study, but they had like video. They had all these great, rich type of facility. They had video room. They had photography lab. They had chess club. They had electronics. Again with doing the integrated circuit on a cardboard. And I love the brothers that they were Jesuit brothers. I loved them. I loved the teachers. And so then I found myself in a catch-22 situation where now I like the school, but I failed out. And so, but I didn't quite fail yet, but they were like, hey, you better take him out and put him in public school because he's not going to make it. So, but I carried that with me. So all of those different things, I wind up having a profound interest in video, and that's what I do today. I have a red camera. I do all that kind of stuff, all the photographic kind of stuff. I have drones. My computer lab, computer circuits. I really attribute that school and that experience with that. So it was very early on. I always knew that I wanted to do that work, but it was just now how do I get there? How do I become an artist? I had no clue. And my parents weren't really all that interested after they paid good money for me to go to a great school. They were like, you better find your way to get into school. We had 7 brothers that we had to go on to the next one. And the next one, my brother, Paul, he was much better, making my parents happy than I was, So,
and getting along, yeah.
Right, and same with my sisters, they did things the right way. I was just, black sheep at that point. But I managed, I went to Bryan and Stratton for a while, and I took a commercial. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a guidance, but I struggled along. And I always knew that I didn't need much because I had some talent, and I could learn the classes. But when I went to Bryan and Stratton, the teacher would go on vacation sometimes, and he would leave me in charge of class. And then that's when people who were paying for the class, because I drew all my life, I knew how to do the work. The people who were paying for the class, they would get mad at me and walk out. They're like, why should we listen, especially the older guys, why should we listen to this kid, 20-year-old, who, I pay good money. I come here to show off my bands and cars and take girls and stuff. So, it was just, I always had a lot of drama when it came to doing art. Doing art has probably been some of the best, the highs, the lows. So I take art very seriously. And even my mentor, he knew what was ahead of me. And he said, he used to, you remember Lurch from the Monster? Oh, he did that low voice and shake his head, I told my mentor, I said, I want to be an artist. And he said, so you want to be an artist, huh? And he'd shake his head. He was teaching me, but he kind of prepared me to let me know that it's not going to be easy. And you really have to try. You really have to work. And there's some really great people out there that have been to Rome and the Louvre and has had study and backing and all this other kind of money and all these other kind of experience to be, to study the great masters. And that's what you're going to be up against. So don't take it lightly. Don't play with it, So, I've always seriously do it. But my first actual work, again, was with my mentor. And he, I was part, I want to thank Paul Hicks, who was part of this little program that they had. It was called SCORE, where, they pay half your salary and you study under the tutelage of someone like Bill Clinton, and they would pay half. And so, but when the program ran out, I said, Bill, I need a job. I was in high school. I needed work. I had nice clothes then. I had rings. I was an artist doing my own thing with Bill, and I had this program. And so it was like, when the program ended after 2 years, or after you got out of high school, it's like, what now? How do I get work? What do I do? And he says, what's that in your hand? I said, a pencil. He said, and what's that in the other hand? Hey, piece of pad. Why are you asking me for a job? He says, here, here, take this chair, sit in front of my store, and I want you to sketch portraits. And the first one I want you to do for free, and the second one I want you to do for free, and I want you to do them for free for a week, until people get to know who you are, and they can know where to go for free portraits. Then, after everybody start coming to you, I want you to charge $1. And then the next week, I want you to charge $2. By the end of the summer, I was charging $15 doing portraits and doing trades, doing festivals, and getting like the news and newspapers. The first Juneteenth festival in the city, I was one of the artists there. And, they were doing write-ups on me and in the Buffalo paper, the Challenger, and even at Allentown. I was on the news and stuff like that. So, like I say, when he endowed me with the entrepreneurial spirit, I really learned what it was to be an artist and to build from the ground up. So even still, when I left New York, I carried that spirit with me when I came back to Buffalo and started my studio. I never intended to create a business here in Buffalo. I just came here to study, but I wound up studying. I can go on and on, William. You have to stop me.
Oh, no. This makes it very easy for me. But here's the thing. A whole lot of people are getting the entrepreneurial spirit, and it's for two reasons. The first reason is, like I said before, a paucity of jobs. It's tough getting a job. So if you can create your own job by filling a niche, it's something people are doing.
Exactly.
But the second part of that is, you still have to have skills and talent. You can't have one or the other. You can have good skills, but if you don't have talent, there's no creativity. Okay? And you can have talent and creativity, but if you're still only putting 3 fingers on a hand, that ain't so cool, if you're an artist, okay? Or if you have a 200-word vocabulary and you want to write a novel, that ain't so cool. So there's that blending there that becomes the magic formula, okay? There is, and in some ways it is magic. It's about, sometimes you get 2% magic, sometimes you get 10% magic, but regardless of whatever your percentage of magic is, you still have to have skills. You have to have talent. You have to bring something to the table that people are going to look at and they're going to laud. Okay, they're going to say, okay, this is pretty cool. Now, you've done enough work in your lifetime that you've demonstrated that you not only do you have skills, but you do have talent. And so at this point in your life, what are the things that you like to do not because they're easy, but because they are hard, or because they stretch you, or because, well, you know what I'm saying, because it's like where they said, who was it who stopped climbing Mount Everest because it was there? Mm-hmm. Right now you're working on, a 3D animated movie. Okay, you're doing art for a 3D animated movie. Mm-hmm. What about the things that you're doing today? And it doesn't even have to be specifically that. But what is it that drives you creatively now?
Well, as we were saying, the thing to follow through, as we were saying, my message to our other artists is, don't take it for granted. So as you say, develop the skills. If you don't have, everybody has different levels of what you might call talent, but, if you don't, take the time to develop it, whatever you have, just use what you have and try to make the most of it, grow it. But just don't take it for granted. Like, oh, I already know this. I hear people say, oh, yeah, I learned Photoshop in 3 months. I'm like, you know what? There's people that still try to learn Photoshop. What you think you know, you don't really know. You just don't know what you don't know. Develop those skills. Like I say, there's people who have been to the Louvre, and travel around the world, who studied under masters, and you say, you walk up to them and say, hey, I know all about this. No, you don't. So don't take it for granted. So a lot of what I want to do is to perfect my skill, perfect my talent, to develop to a level, now that the technology has developed to where the art, the tools are in synchronicity with the artist, that now we're not waiting for the tools to get better so that we can actually do a face properly. There's so many tools that will allow an artist to express himself the way that he truly envisioned. So I would like to truly, as Bruce Lee would say, I would like to honestly do with all sincerity my true, the true self, to work with in sincerity and true honesty and integrity. As Bruce Lee would say, very hard to do. That's tough enough. That's hard, to, not skip, to say, well, I really only gave 98% when I should have gave 100% at least, or I only gave 80%, and when I should have gave 90, I could have done a little bit better, so to sincerely do my work,
Yeah.
to meet my goals in that way.
No, I understand the goals, and I certainly understand the drive to perfection. This English that I'm speaking now, for me, is a second language. I did not grow up speaking like this. This is completely different from the way I spoke. And then when I apply that to how I write, my writing has to, I want to be a better and better writer. Every book I want to be better. But for me, attaining that, the satisfaction I get actually is delayed satisfaction, because I don't get the satisfaction until somebody comes back and says, that was a great story. For you, because you work in a highly visual medium, what kinds of things do you love about what you do? I mean, specifically, is it the creation of a two-dimensional or three-dimensional universe? Is it the rendering of characters that nobody's ever seen before? Is it combining color and texture in a way that speaks for itself and is uniquely Alonzo? What is it about your art that really, you see what I'm saying? What is it when you're sitting by yourself? When you're sitting by yourself and nobody's bothering you, nobody's in the room with you, and you finish something, you go, damn, I had no idea, or damn, I really pulled it off.
Yeah.
What is that thing, man? What is that thing that's doing that for you?
That thing right there, I get that thing right there every day. I get it that like all the time. It's like that. Like I feel kind of strange. I'm like, how can anybody do that? Like I'm always hollering, Eureka! In a room by myself. I think I'm always doing that. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Even when I used to paint, I used to, swipe a color mantras, one of my mission statements was to have, when I first went into business, 900 Broadway in New York, when I had my first studio after I left a drafting Murray Feist, where I was doing 3D computer graphics for CAD. That's another big peeve of mine. I think that more blacks need to get into manufacturing and producing actual manufacturable product. So I did that for a while. I would love to see like the black manufactured or designed car. I think I said that, and P. Diddy, I think he slapped his name on a one type of Escalade car. I give him credit for it because somebody did it. 50 Cent is doing stuff like Geek Unit, where he has a collaboration with Star Wars, the company that owns Star Wars. I don't know who does Disney. Maybe Disney. Yeah. That they're producing a brand of headphones that, these are Star Wars branded headphones, licensed and branded headphones. So that's major market, major appeal. That's international, global. I have a brand of DVDs that are sold tutorial programs called Ready Rigs, ABT Pro Ready Rigs, where I've taken a lot of my knowledge and my teaching skills. I used to teach at Pratt Parsons in New York. So I taught and all the studies that I've done, those private moments at night and going over things, like Thomas Edison, 1,001 time, because of the 1,001 time that you get it, that actually makes it work, So, you fail one time, 999 times to go, So, I've taken all that information and branded it into Ready Rigs DVDs, and I sold them all over the world, globally, Spain, France. So those are not really my goals, but I would like to have a character, much like, it's not so new for somebody who, in America, especially when you have people like Disney who have, mega billions of dollars and have 50 years of anniversary history to do something so new and so creative. But today on the internet, I'm putting the word Black Animation Company. I'd like my name to come up. That's what I want. That would be my thing, You type in Alonzo Von Threet and you see Black Animation Company, and brands and things that affect, how Disney affected, like with stories. I'm working on a film with Jarvis, with BlackScienceFictionFantasy.com, but that was Jarvis is just a really smart guy. He saw me developing these types of technology, and he has that, again, district mentality, community mentality, and that's why we have BlackScienceFiction.com, BlackScienceFictionFantasy.com. So, he said, hey, man, let's do a film. Let's work together. I said, hey, man, yeah, I can work with you, grow and learn some things and test my skills, sharpen my saw, and make things work, So, and that's been a fantastic experience with me, because I'm doing things for Jarvis that I normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do for another Black animation company or Black-owned animation company, a 3D animation company. So that's what I would like to do, to create opportunities so that some kid, who has to, travel to, let's say, the library or don't have access or, says in the 7th grade, I want to be an animator. He can go to a Black animation company and say, hey, I want a job. That is something I would love to be, blessed or in a position to do, is to create that type of, or to help build that kind of genre in that district.
I was told to correct you. It's BlackScienceFictionSociety.com, which is just a damn shame, because you hear every day, doggone it.
I was glad, blowing
let's talk about the artistry that you're employing for BlackScienceFictionSociety.com's movie, which is Earth Squadron. For people who want to check it out. Oh, also, you know what? Somebody mentioned, where can we look for those DVDs of yours? Where can we get all of those DVDs?
Those DVDs are specifically for electric image animation.
Electric image animation.
Right.
And, okay.
So the software, so that's EIAS3D.com. And you will see in the forums, you will see that. You can just Google Ready Rigs. I'm sure something will come out. I had a crazy YouTube channel. I have a lot of free tutorials out. And so, but that's if you use electric image. And electric image is known as one of the best kept secrets in Hollywood. John Noel from Industrial Light Magic, who does a lot of super special effects for Hollywood. He used it for years. It's also been known as the program that won't die because it hasn't had all the backing. But if you're an animator and you want a very simple, independent type of animation system to build and just about do anything, it does a few things extremely well and other things good enough to get a film done and to do character animation. But it's a program that I have employed and a lot of people still use for many years to do renderings. I've used it to employ people with several animators. I hired several animators that were electric image animation animators. And so I have employed them to use the software. But the program is called Ready Rigs. So I've done that. I've done those type of tutorials. Also, getting back to your question, the things I've done for Jarvis with this particular project, like I say, I do my own work. I freelance and I do other projects. I've done stuff for clients, Puma. I have done things for agencies that were for Disney and stuff like that. But for Jarvis, it's a wonderful opportunity. Like I said, Jarvis taught me right when I was doing some things with ZBrush, which ZBrush is an amazing tool. It's revolutionary for doing creating characters, sculpting, digital clay. For many years they said, we're going to have digital sculpting and clay. Well, this is the realization of that promise. And so artistically, you can sculpt anything. It really, when it comes to polygon modeling, it really resolves that in a very artistic, intuitive way. So I got some models from Jarvis. He actually he created those models. I did a soldier and an alien. I am a hired gun, so, my interaction, I don't know the full story script. I'm not sure if I know I don't know the name of the characters, but I put my heart and soul into those characters, and I've been very responsible for what happens with those characters. Like, I get on Jarvis' case sometimes about those characters. Jarvis, what are you doing with those characters? I haven't seen them in a while. What's going on with the movie? I've been working on those characters for about a year, but it's a tough situation with Jarvis because, it's kind of catch-22. The campaign was to get money to pay for animation so that you can get money to pay for animation. So it's the most stereotypical catch-22 you can get, So Jarvis was coming out of his pocket for this stuff to get me, professional animator, and digital modeler and sculptor. And like I said, I've done several projects. If you go to Digital Doll House, I've actually sculpted furniture that are for digital doll houses that you can actually print out, buy a doll house and buy a 3D printer and print them out so that little girls, can put them in their dollhouse, and this is where the technology of digital dollhouses have gone, where you can actually just buy the dollhouse and print out all the furniture. I've used ZBrush for that kind of stuff. So with the models that Jarvis gave me that he created, I reshaped the models, resculpted them into the character designs. He wanted my flair, my artistic perspective on it. So build the characters out to be more of a cinematic style type of Hollywood type of character, or game characters, cinematographic type of characters. So the one is like a Robotech. One is like very much like Pacific Rim type of work. He's working with a limited budget, so I can't spend like 5 years or 3 years to do this. I have to keep the lights on, while I work on this work. Yeah. So so go ahead.
Go ahead.
So basically that's what I did. But the wonderful opportunity of doing this, our own work, or doing this independent project, is that I actually not only got a chance to sculpt them, I also got a chance to texture paint them, which usually on a project I'm too busy sculpting or rigging for Puma. Like I've done like robot rigs for Puma, which I love Puma and the work and the business they gave me. I've done flying porcupines for Puma. I've done dancing robots. If you look it up, if you do we did an article on it. So I've done those type of things, but I'm usually only working with one part of the project, and I never get to see the rest of the project. This was an independent project. I was able to work on all levels. So now I've actually just delivered today the rig. So it's pretty amazing, how this technology, and Jarvis is really smart on picking up on this, that you can do all levels in studio. So maybe people didn't believe or understand that you can really produce. The guy in a back room can produce something Hollywood style type of animation, with the tools that we have today. There used to be a lead time, like, when they first created the dinosaurs, it was 5 years before we ever saw that technology trickle down into the hands of the average artist or intermediate budget type of artist. But nowadays, when they release these technology, I mean, Disney, and it's probably the only thing I've liked about Disney in the last, years, about their conglomerate type of mentality of owning everybody. They own Marvel, they own everybody, The thing that I like about them is now the software tools that they develop for like movies like Tango, Action, and stuff like that, or Pixar, they actually release those type of technologies almost the following year, or almost immediately, or sometimes free to artists. So the time, instead of 5 years, is like 1 year or immediate. So, one of the things that I've been working with lately is like fluid effects, Bifrost fluid effects. And it's just amazing, that you can actually have like Pacific Rim, or the movie Rihanna was in, Battleship. I used to have Battleship. That water fluid simulation technology. These are heavy-duty, complex algorithms and computations that, are in the hands of the average artist that we can do this type of advanced visualization. So that's amazing stuff. And while I'm at it, shameless plug, the name of my company is Advanced Visualization Technology Productions, or AVT Pro. So you can look me up for AVT Pro and see some of my stuff. Don't pay attention to everything I've got here, but some of it is really I'm pretty proud of, So.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great things about what computer technology has done is that it has made the kind of creative tools that nobody could up until now, had the opportunity to even explore. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, stop and think about it. You know, I always joke, but it's not a joke. Hollywood is the place where you go for your dreams to die. Okay? So you're a 21-year-old black man, and you want to get into animation in 1990, in 1995, in the year 2000, and you go out to L.A. because you want to become a black animator. You do, or just an animator, but you happen to be black. Forget it. It's not going to happen because you're not going to, you know, ILM is not going to hire you. You know, you're just not going to have the opportunity. Flash forward just a decade and a half, 2 decades, you know, all of a sudden it's different. All of a sudden, if you have a decently powered home computer, you can render your own three-dimensional movies with great textures that have the same resolution, that have the same depth of color and shading as the best that's available out there. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, a high school kid can do Avatar,
Right.
but a high school kid can surely do, you know, 10 times better than any anime movie that came out in the past 40 years.
It's a brilliant opportunity, William. It's absolutely revolutionary. And I think that we, as a people, black people, need to recognize it and not to stifle each other or ourselves with old thinking or antiquated thinking into dealing with this new technology or the digital divide. We should anticipate it, capitalize on it, and use it to our best of our ability to elevate each other and ourselves. And because that's exactly the opportunity and the functionality that this situation creates, you know, that exists. And let me say that about this, and I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to say it publicly. When I was young, 17 years old, in the art books, in those books, the art history books, because that's all I had, there was a paradigm shift that occurred in the Renaissance period of artists. And that thing was perspective drawing, or what I evaluated, or I could see or observe as being a paradigm shift, in a technological paradigm shift, even in the old master states. Drawing used to be that you would just, when you drew a landscape, they didn't have an understanding of perspective or 3D drawing. They didn't know that things that were farther away in the horizon were smaller. Even though you could see it, you know, and see it clearly, the scale of it was smaller as it receded back to the horizon. And so at some point, they developed a methodology where they observed the pattern that you could draw a line from the horizon with 2 points, and everything should align to those 2 points, and that is perspective. And it goes back into 3D, and it's the same principle of 3D drawing today. This was something I learned in 7th grade with Mr. Humes in my shop class, and I learned 3D, how to do perspective drawing. But at some point, there had to be a number of artists who had said, you know what, this new thing with 3D perspective drawing, or perspective, they just probably call it perspective drawing. This new thing that Michelangelo, Leonardo, and all those crazy cats are doing, I'm not going to do. I'm not going to cross that divide. I'm not going to go into this new technology of 3D. I like the way I've been doing it. It's old. It's just, I go and break my egg shells, and I make some gesso out of the egg, and I can glue my pigments together. I pound my flour together, and I get my violet colors out of violet plants, and I'm happy. And I'm never going to do the other kind of perspective and using rulers or stuff like that to accurately portray realism like these other guys. That's the digital divide of their day. And I said to myself, when that I evaluated when I I was 17 years old, I said, that's going to happen again. And when it happens again, I don't want to be on the other side of the shore looking at the other guy floating away off into the perspective, you know? So now I look at artists who say, you know what, I'm only going to do paints. I'm only going to learn those, that's good enough. You know, they're actually thinking like, you know, the other old artists. You know, when it's all just tools. A pencil is a tool. A pencil doesn't draw a beautiful painting for you. A paintbrush doesn't do a beautiful. Paint will not make a painting. You know, it's the artist. It's the person behind it. A computer will not do beautiful art for you. Pushing buttons won't do it. It's a tool. So it's just you as an artist, how you apply yourself. If you say, hey, I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to change. I'm going to grow like everything changed, like everything in life. I'm going to grow. You know, everything in life should grow. You know, maybe. You know, that's up to conjecture. But, you know, in general, that's my attitude about these new tools and about computers. It's just another tool. When I hear artists, and I can swing a brush with the best of them back in my day, you know, and I painted, and I drew, and I did portraits, and I studied, and all that stuff, and I understood Disney, and I understood Michelangelo, and all of that stuff, and I studied art. So I'm like, who better not to say, you know, that, hey, these are just artistic tools, just like everything else. And it always depends on who you are as an artist, your vision, you know, your aesthetics, your sensitivity, and what you do with them, not what it does with you, you know. So that's my message as far as that, you know. Don't get stuck in the past with this stuff, you know. So,
yeah.
I don't know what
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Do you have an opportunity to do much outreach with teens or younger aspiring artists at this point, or have you are you kind of embedded in your own art and not at that point yet, or will you ever be at that point?
Well, I have done some. I generally have done that. Like I say, I think I have a natural propensity to want to teach and to want to share, you know, like I say, with my brothers and family. And I do have a group, and I'm so happy about this stuff. I mean, this stuff genuinely fascinates me. So when I see it, I'm like, hey, look at this. Look what it can do, Lord. Look what I did. You know, it's not so much, you know, I try not to get too ego about it, but I'm so excited. Like, look what happened, you know. So I tend to want to share, you know. So in general, yes, I've had mentors in the Buffalo area that I help, you know. Same thing about Buffalo. You know, they don't always take you too seriously. I'm like, hey, I've done, you know, it's like, you know, they want you to prove that you're an artist. And I'm like, maybe you don't know. Should I give you my resume? Maybe you don't know. But, you know, I am an artist. And,
sometimes it's tough to convey that to kids because, you know, unless there's something concrete in front of them, it's hard for them to maybe imagine. I had an opportunity Wednesday. I volunteered at school. And so there's these kids, you know, I'm working on some computers, trying to fix their lab up, some, you know, a couple keyboards here, whatever. And some guys came in to get a sound system because it's a religious school, so they have chapel on Wednesday. And the guys are going, oh, you know, they're not really excited about it. I said, well, you know, are you into sound or are you into, you know, well, yeah, I was thinking about maybe doing my own music. I said, you know what, if you learn what I know, and it doesn't even have to be everything I know, or if you want to be a sound technician like for a movie and do that sort of thing, you know, you can make about $150 to $250 an hour. And that stopped them dead in their tracks.
That's what I like to talk about.
And I said, we're getting ready to shoot a movie at the end of the summer. And you know the sound guy that we're hiring, he costs $250 an hour. And guess what? He has to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he leaves at 10 o'clock at night. You add up how many 250s that is. And then all of a sudden they start thinking in terms of, well, it's not just setting up the sound system, but there's earning potential.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, it's younger people with the idea of art as endeavor. But let's be honest, a lot of people have to figure out, well, how am I going to make a living at this? Or, you know, I'll even tell you, my ex used to come and watch me in my office working on the computer, and I'd be doing programming or something like that, and she'd say, hey, when are you going to be done playing on the computer?
Yeah, they don't take you serious.
Yeah, it could be one of the reasons why she's my ex. but you know, unless you can translate things into, you know, into a concrete example rather than the abstract, sometimes people don't get it. So when you tell, you know, let's say you tell an 8th grader that you're an animator, and they go, okay, so what? Yeah, that sounds interesting. And you go, did you see Pacific Rim? And they go, yeah. How do you think they made those robots in the movie? Guys like me made those. And then all of a sudden they start going, oh, yeah. And then you say, and you know how much a good animator makes? And then you tell them, and they go, cha-ching, you know, all of a sudden, because let's be honest, we're in a very capitalistic society. Money is the prime motivator of everybody. I don't give a damn. You know, people come to me and go, oh, I just write for myself. I don't write to make money. I go, well, do you make money at it? They go, well, of course I do. So, well, if you're just writing for yourself, why aren't you giving it away? Oh, yeah, well, you know.
I don't get it.
So yeah, the motivation of young minds is something that I think all of us who do mentor have to figure out, you know, how do we approach these kids? Because, you know, they're completely different from us. You know, I had no electronic devices when I was a kid other than, I don't know, you know, toys. I had toys, but there was no internet, there was no tablets. When I was growing up, we didn't, you know, there was no such thing as a VCR that didn't exist outside of a TV studio. Things have changed quite a bit in a generation, and we have to relate to these kids on their level. You know, a lot of people go, well, I want them to come to me. And the fact is they're never going to come to us. They're not going to come to us unless we can motivate them. We got about 10 minutes to go. One of the things I'd like to talk to you about is, you know, we know your past. We know some of the things that you do now. Let's flash forward 10 years. And what do you think that your studio will be, you know, producing at that time? And how is it going to be affecting the people in, you know, kind of in your sphere of influence?
Oh, that's an interesting question, William. You know, 10 years from now, we don't know how the technology will change. And so I don't know if I would think that far advanced. Maybe 5 years. Like I
okay,
do
let's
have
go
5 years.
Yeah, let's go 5 years.
Well, I do hope to have some of my own films done. I did promo or announce rather that I am going to be producing my own film, and I can tell you the name of it. It's going to be John Henry. So one of my World Book encyclopedias that I had when I was a little kid, I got my first heroes from them, which was John Henry was one. Jesse Owens was another one. And so these, as a matter of fact, today is the day that Jesse Owens was honored as one of the great heroes. He got a reward honored by the Bush administration, surprisingly enough. But he definitely was one of my heroes that I read in the World Book encyclopedias. You know, to me, he's phenomenal. So those type of stories that I love to bring to animation or VFX, you know. So I see myself, because animation or 3D animation or the technology is convergent technology. It leads to many different pathways. So the same 3D geometry can be either it's very difficult because, it all takes money and time. So I would love for this scenario to this podcast, maybe, or through Black Science Fiction, maybe to find backers or angels or a support team or revenue streams that will help to enable me to employ or to meet those goals or to create a team that will help do that. I do have resources where I can get these type of jobs done. I have the experience and a wealth of knowledge with it, and that I'm ready to deploy this, ready to go with that. So eventually I will look into backing. Right now everything has been out of pocket. I have like a red camera, which is about a $25,000 to $30,000 camera. I work with drone technology, flying aerial cinematography. My studio, I have, two Mac Pros. I have 8 computers. I've invested a lot of my finances, but it would be great if I had someone to help me lift the burden or a financial partner that I could do that. I'm not going after that right now because I'm developing the technology and working with Black Science Fiction Fantasy.com. I hope I got it right. Is a part of that. I'm actually doing the kind of characters that will help to attract that business. And hey, there's 3,000 people on that website. And from what I hear, there's people in the movies. I mean, I'm also growing from the website because you guys got me into studying writing, and that part of the process. I've gotten other clients like Al Hoppy. I'm going to be doing some cinematic storyboards with him as well, and doing some work with him as far as that is concerned. Again, that's just all art to me. There's the writing part and the storyboard, visualizing stories of themes is one of the reasons why I hang around Black Science Fiction Fantasy. Black sci-fi, that's what I call it. But anyway, you guys had Steve Barnes on there. He does pilots, right, for television series. I don't watch TV too much, so I don't know all the names. But he has a great tutorial on writing that I have been, kind of going through. As an artist or a painter, you're a writer, you're a storyteller in that way, but you kind of freeze that moment in time. Animation is actually the endurance of that story, the length of time of that story. So, I'm learning how to incorporate those writer-based screenwriting skills and picking that up from you guys. That's why I tune in every Friday. So I do see myself doing that in the future, having more stories, creating product, and putting those products on the shelf of Target, Walmart, buying your DVDs or digital downloads or whatever it is, Netflix in 10 years or whatever, that kind of thing.
Do you, is a lot of your work collaborative now, or are you still kind of a singular artist, doing singular pursuits? For example, the reason why I'm getting at this is, when you talk about putting together, like the Black Science Fiction Society.com movie Earth Squadron, that's obviously a collaborative effort. When you get to the point where you're going to be doing your movies, I understand you want to keep, control of the production, but do you think it's going to be difficult or fairly easy for you to do collaborative work?
Well, it depends on what I want to do, what role I would play in a collaborative work. So when I collaborate, I do, most of my business projects are usually always collaborative. I'm basically fulfilling a need, the technical part. Like the time that I had to hire animators. So that was technical. Most of my business is to do the technical part, the specialty part that the person who is handling the project wouldn't necessarily spend their time doing the amount of research and work to get that particular part of the job. So like I just did a project for Hellmeyer. I forgot the name of the company, but it was hydraulic system, piston system. And there was a small organic part for a diaphragm that needed to be organic. Now he could handle all the rest of the mechanical parts, but with all these centrifugal type of rotations and orbits and forces and things like that, from just a piston. But the organic part of getting the rubber diaphragm to match up to the pistons and stuff, that was the part that I could do. And so I might get paid whatever, $5,000 or whatever, or I forgot what I did, but I worked on upwards of $5,000, $10,000. You know, a lot of my projects, you know, I've handled $100,000 projects. Those type of projects, you know, even though the onus of those type of projects may be on me as a director or supervisor, it is highly dependent on the kind of highly skilled staff that you have with you. So it depends on the type of work that I'm actually doing. Do I have to be the large and in charge? No. You know, a lot of the stuff that I do for David, you know, and the projects vary. You know, it could be a $5,000 project, $1,200 project. You know, we've worked on, you know, many different projects of various budgets. And David is, you know, I love David. He's really a friend. He's an Asian guy, David Wu, and he's Chinese. And we worked on projects. He's so calm and mild-mannered. You know, when we're under a lot of pressure, you know, he can handle the stress. You know, I love that. He's very calm, nature person. So you can tell by my speech, I'm kind of spastic and enthusiastic, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go sit down somewhere. I get really hyper, you know. You know, I love working with him, you know. So, you know, you gotta work around people you can work with. When I know that somebody in the forums or somebody is giving me a hard time and we would not work well on a project, you know, for whatever reason, you know, I wouldn't work with them, you know. And, you know, it's just, you know, your business acumen you should reflect it all the time, even in your online, you know, affiliations and relationships, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that, and you do get a good feel for who you can and can't work with.
Right.
So we're out of time. I want to thank you very much for being here, and apologies to everybody for all of the technical problems. They are not of our doing. Our carrier, TalkShoe, has caused some headaches today. I want to thank everybody who listened, though, and I want to thank everybody who checks us out as a podcast. And as always, be sure to tell your friends about, you know, the show. It's on every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And we spend a good 2-hour conversation talking to the best in black creatives at and around the BlackScienceFiction.com Society website. And our peerless leader is experiencing some technical problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wish everybody a good weekend and a good week ahead. And I'll see everybody back here again next Friday. And Alonzo, thank you very, very much. You made it an easy show to do, and I'm sure we'll be grabbing you and bringing you around sometime in the future. So everybody have a... Yeah, did you enjoy yourself?
It was fantastic. It was a lot easier than I thought. It was good. Still put me in the right direction I go. Thanks, Will.
All right. So on behalf of Jarvis Sheffield, the administrator and the creator of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website, and myself, I want to wish everybody a good